All right, everybody, welcome to a very special edition, a very breaking edition of the Hoosier Life. We are coming at you, for those of you watching live, just as Fred Glass and Tom Allen are wrapping up their press conference. Glass made a statement clarifying what happened with Kevin Wilson. That news breaking earlier today that he would no longer be the head football coach of Indiana. The initial reports were saying that he was let go. He was fired. Glass clarified that the main cause of this, or the main cause of Wilson's absence now, no longer being the football coach, is he resigned. And what Glass said, basically, to sum it up, and you can follow us on Twitter. We've got the direct quotes, and it's all over. I'm sure if you follow, Mike Miller and guys like that. Basically said that they had talks for weeks, and when it boiled down to it, Coach Wilson and Fred Glass just did not have the same vision going forward, and they couldn't see eye to eye on what they wanted the program to be, where they saw the program going, and what they wanted with the program. So that's basically what he said. Again, his press conference is wrapping up right now. For those of you that are listening live, and obviously those of you that are listening Friday or over the weekend, more details will emerge. But Josh, my first question for you that we can discuss here. And we were completely unprepared for this. We had a show planned, a fun show planned, and then immediately got the news of this and said, all right, drop everything. We got to talk about this. My first question to you, and I'm sure that this is a similar feeling for everybody, but your initial reaction when you heard the news, and then I guess just now after watching this press conference, what's going through your head?
It's kind of hard to kind of sum this up just this quickly. I mean, I was at lunch at Buffalo Louise with some friends at about 3 o'clock when my friend got an email, and he said, major press conference at 6 o'clock at Henke Hall of Champions. We were all like, oh, what could this be? Could it be Tom Allen is getting a different coaching job somewhere else? I don't know why they have a big press conference for that. And we were eventually – it just the facts started to come out, and it was Kevin Wilson was going to be dismissed. I guess it's not technically fired. Basically they split because of philosophical differences. That's how they put it. So it's kind of hard to comprehend right now. But I will say, I really like what Fred Glass did and went out and got Tom Allen right off the bat. There's no interim tag on it. It's permanent job for Tom Allen. This is Tom Allen's program. We saw in his first couple lines of his speech that he was emotional about this, and we'll get into this in just a minute. But it's interesting because I don't think we really learned a whole lot about why this exactly happened. I was listening right before we came on to Zach Osterman and Bob Kravitz and Andy Graham. They're all asking questions about what specifically was the reason why he was taken out of this position, and it was really just philosophical differences, and he got that big 6-year extension at the beginning of 2016, and now he's no longer the coach, and there's still a few questions to be answered. I'm sure those will come out in the coming days. Maybe they won't. But for right now, it's going to be interesting to see how this process continues moving forward.
Yeah, it seems, and the words we're using here, these quotes that we have, come from Fred Glass. We're watching his interview just a few minutes ago. It sounded like it was a decision more or less made by Kevin Wilson. Obviously, the word resignation, suggests that, but you could certainly look at it from an angle saying that Glass said, if you don't resign, we'll fire you, blah blah blah, all that stuff. But it certainly sounds like that this was a peaceful parting of ways, if you will. Surprising. I think the way that they've handled this press conference has been a little odd to me. I feel like there are some questions, like you said, that are unanswered. I think it's actually more than some. I think there are a lot just because of, all these tweets that came out from current and former players, as the news broke. And again, when former players come out and make accusations like that, as the news breaks that a coach is fired, you have to take that with a grain of salt. They could be completely making it up. They could be telling the 100% truth. They could be telling a slightly fictional version of what actually happened. You never know. So time will tell with regard to those tweets. I know Dominique Booth had some that caught a lot of people's eyes, and then a lot of guys that are no longer within the program. But again, this to me seemed like it was Kevin Wilson's, it was his move. It was more or less his decision. Obviously, Fred Glass had some influence with that because they'd been talking for weeks prior. And, of course, the thing that confuses me is the fact that, Fred just decided to pay Kevin a decent amount of money and a nice extension just a year ago. And here we are, the 1st of December, and I'm looking at Tom Allen right now being introduced as the head coach. And we're going to get into him shortly and his coaching tree and, what he brings to the table and all that stuff. And we got a lot of positive things to say, but I'm just still stunned. I truly did not see this coming. And Fred Glass cited lack of leadership, which thinking about it, I can kind of see. But I love the way that Kevin Wilson coached on the field. I can't speak for how he treated his guys in the locker room or in practice because I haven't been there to see that. So I can't comment on that. But the way he coached games, this is a program that historically of a few years ago was the losingest program in Division I college football history. And, here we are. And Josh, since we've set foot on campus, this team has been 500 in the regular season. They got a good win over Michigan State at the time, and they've come close. They came close to Michigan twice. They had them on the ropes, came close to Penn State this year. They've taken so many top 10 teams down to the final play. And, he brought this program to semi-Big Ten relevance, which, if you had said that a few years ago after he went 1-11 in his first year, people would have said you're crazy. So we have to give, Kevin Wilson a little bit of credit for what he did on the field and getting this team to perform. Again, we don't know anything about these other accusations, so we can't comment on that. But, he brought this team to a 6-6 record, and people speak highly of him as a coach and his ability to coach guys and get the best out of his players. And he certainly did that at Indiana. And we'll see what Tom Allen can do. And he's got a very, very deep coaching tree. It reminds me a lot of Gus Malzahn at Auburn, but we're going to get into him in a little bit. But Josh, do you have anything else to add on your reaction or your thoughts on Kevin Wilson before we really dive into the Tom Allen talk?
Yeah, it's I just kind of wonder what was the breaking point, and did that happen recently? Did it happen before he got his extension? Because that's the part that's confusing a lot of people, I think, is why did he get this extension if there were some concerns at the time that something like this could have happened? There were philosophical differences, as they put it, as Fred Glass put it. That's the part that's kind of confusing me, and I've seen it on Twitter a little bit of just kind of what is going on here with this program, why this decision happened now with the bowl game coming up in a few weeks. If you had, or if you were going to give him the extension back in January and nothing has really changed up until the bowl game, I don't see why you don't just keep him until the bowl game. It's really interesting to see, or it will be interesting to see what happens after this, what the fallout will be with Kevin Wilson, whether he comes out and speaks, whether Indiana comes out and says something. But there had to be something recently, and this is all basically speculation on my part, but there had to be something recently that sparked something, and they said they met this morning and they decided to officially part ways, Fred Glass and Kevin Wilson. I don't know. It's really interesting. It's kind of hard to wrap our brains around this quickly. This basically came out 3 hours and 45 minutes ago. The email was sent out around 3 o'clock this afternoon. It's really been a whirlwind of an afternoon. Nobody saw this coming. I don't think anybody in the IU football fan base saw this coming. I don't think anybody within the program saw this coming. It was really just a shock when it came out, and now I think Tom Allen is going to be the right guy for this job.
I think so too. And Glass just cited an external law firm, I think, came in to do a study or something, some search within the IU football program. He just said, I'm following this on Twitter right now. We had to get this show going before it wrapped up just to get our initial reactions out. It doesn't sound like, just from the quotes I'm reading, again, I'm not listening to this. I'm listening to Josh on the other end. But just the tweets and the quotes that I'm reading, it sounds like there was no NCAA violation. So we don't have, as of now, we don't have to worry about a potential postseason ban or scholarships revoked. As of now, again, that could change. We don't know. But as of right now, it sounds like Fred Glass is not too concerned about that unless he's hiding something. And he said, quote, "What might be acceptable at other places or in the industry is not acceptable here." So I think that, it's just kind of, again, that fine line that I guess we've been talking about a lot lately in the past half decade, about these football and basketball coaches. Football is a tough, physical, emotional sport. And that's not a secret for any of you that have played football. And for those of you that have never played football, it's not a secret that football is a tough sport. And, it's all about who's the most macho, and for lack of a better term, and who's the toughest guy out there. And sometimes you're going to get angry coaches, and sometimes you're going to get angry players. And, some players may view it differently than others. So that's what I think is happening, with these guys kind of speaking out about that. Again, I can't stress this enough. I don't want to get us in any trouble. We don't know anything. They haven't said anything. So we're more or less speculating here and just kind of running with what we've heard and what we're reading. So, but yeah, I mean, this will clear up, I'm sure, over the next few months. Definitely by this time next year, I think we'll be very clear about what happened. And this may be it. You never know. This could be it. It could simply just be, that Fred Glass and Kevin Wilson couldn't see eye to eye. Maybe Fred Glass just feels the urgency and he feels like, okay, 500 2 years in a row. Looking forward, I don't see anything that Coach Wilson can bring to the table that's new that would make this program an 8-4 program instead of a 6-6. And who knows? We'll see what happens. Again, that's going to clear up. But Josh has a quote or a tweet to read for us. So Josh, take it away.
Yeah, I was just scrolling through Twitter as you were talking. This came across my timeline from Taylor Lehman of the IDS. Leadership disagreements between Glass and Wilson. Glass gets external law firm to investigate. Glass said he wanted a second opinion. I guess he really didn't like that second opinion. So, I mean, there's so many things going around, and I don't really think Tom Allen, I'm just also reading on Twitter, he's just kind of sitting there while Kevin Wilson is getting while Fred Glass is getting hammered on all these questions about Kevin Wilson. So I don't think he's really going to say a whole lot in his press conference. I don't think you're going to hear anything about this whole situation for quite a long time, if even ever, if they just keep this hidden for quite a while. But I don't know. It's interesting how this all came about so quickly, it seems like. But I don't know. For all we know, this could have been going on for the entire season.
Yeah, and again, we'll see. This is going to clear up at some point. Don't know when, but it's going to. And quotes are piling in on Twitter. And again, continue to tweet at us any questions you have, and we will answer them and analyze them to the best of our ability. But to me, it sounds like for the most part, and again, there may be other things on the side, but for the most part, it sounds like Fred Glass is ready to turn this program around. And with Memorial Stadium renovations coming in shortly, Assembly Hall just got a brand new renovation the night after a big win over North Carolina, and the Hoops program is feeling the pressure for that sixth banner. Maybe Fred Glass wants to put that pressure on the football program to succeed a little bit more than they have in the past, which that success has been quite limited, to say the least. And if you want to get a guy that's going to motivate your players to play, it's Tom Allen. If there's a guy within the program that the players want to – I mean, these guys, the defensive side of the ball, rallied behind Tom Allen so quickly, and they have so much love for him after just one season. It's unbelievable. And especially when you consider the guys that are coming back next year, like T. Gray Scales, who led the country in solo tackles, Marcus Oliver, who was the second leading tackler in the Big Ten among linebackers, third overall. Scales was 1, Godwin Igwebuike of Northwestern was 2, and Marcus Oliver right there at 3. You could certainly argue that Indiana is returning what was the best linebacking core in the Big Ten this year. And with such a defensive-minded coach in Tom Allen now taking over the reins, maybe he's going to change the identity of this team in a couple seasons. We'll see. Maybe they could be, and we'll dive into his coaching tree. But who knows what they could be? They want to be solid on all three sides of the ball, including special teams. He talked about special teams in the press conference, I believe, before he even talked about the defense. If I'm not mistaken, I was trying to keep up with tweets and everything, but we'll see what this team's identity is going to be, but it's definitely going to be centered around passion and trust. And Allen stresses a lot about trusting each other. Josh, now I ask you, I guess, straight up, do you feel comfortable in terms of the production on the field and the quality of production on the field? Do you feel comfortable with Tom Allen taking the reins as head coach?
Oh, there's no doubt. I'm 100% behind Tom Allen for him to receive this job. He came in 1 year and completely transformed this defense. And he said it in his press conference. He said, to the defense, nothing is going to change. To the offense, you need to run the ball to be successful, and you need to score in the red zone. And he spoke to special teams. He said he was a special teams coach at Ole Miss, and he said that it's a tough thing to do, but you just got to be able to do those simple things on special teams. So I'm completely behind Tom Allen to be the coach, and he was talking earlier about it's time to break through. It's time for this program to get that signature win. I mean, Michigan State at the time was fine, but this year I think they won 3 games. So, I mean, you had Michigan twice. You had Iowa on their heels last year. You had Ohio State. This year, you only lost to Michigan by 10. It's time for this team to break through, and I think he is the guy to do that. We've seen him on the sidelines all year. He's energetic. He's ready to go. He's always pumped up, and during that press conference, he made me want to run through a brick wall. I mean, he was firing people up. I saw that on Twitter too. People were excited for what Tom Allen has to bring to the table, and I think it's going to be great for this football team. He spoke to the recruits as well. He said he's going to hit the road recruiting tomorrow night after he sees his son play in the semifinals in Florida. Tom Allen's going to take this program, and I think he has a chance to elevate them. They're at a pretty good spot right now. Two bowl games in 2 years is really good for Indiana football. But if he can continue that trend and get to that 7-win mark, that'd be huge. Even 8 wins down the road. There's still a lot left to be said, but right now Tom Allen is the guy. I just want to read one more thing I saw on Twitter about this whole Fred Glass, Kevin Wilson thing. Glass says this situation keeps saying it involves leadership issues, yet he brought in outside counsel to do a review. More than meets the eye. That's from Bob Kravitz. So there's still, I think, a lot to be hammered out here, and it'll be interesting to see what comes next.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely something fishy going on here. I don't know what. Again, I'm not going to speculate as to what, but that the whole he just kind of subtly dropped the fact that he brought someone in on the outside to examine it, and nothing really big came of that yet. And he keeps citing that it was leadership issues and a lack to see eye to eye philosophically was the word he keeps using. But we'll see what happens here. I think that we absolutely have to keep our eyes peeled for the next however many months, because who knows what's going to unfold and when. And again, don't look. This is just a PSA to the viewers. Do not look too much into what former players are tweeting. Just because if they had something to say, for the most part, and you can look at this one of two ways. If they had something to say at the time, they may have said it then. They also may not have. But again, like I said earlier, it could be completely true. It could be completely made up. And it could be a mix of both if these older players are coming out with allegations on Kevin Wilson. So I don't look too much into those until there's legal action being made, like an official investigation of some sort. So I urge you to do that. And again, I'm not defending Kevin Wilson, nor am I throwing him under the bus, purely just stating that there are a lot of unanswered questions right now. I refuse to speculate just because I know as many details as the next person, which is very little. And Fred Glass is providing very little to examine. So, but Josh, let's kind of put this aside. And let's talk about Tom Allen. Let's talk about football and what this means. And enough of the speculation of what could go wrong. I mean, this guy, if you want to compare his coaching tree to someone right now, I would throw it to Gus Malzahn. He started in high school, worked up, multiple different high schools, small colleges as a defensive backs coach, special teams, and then on his way to Arkansas State. Conveniently enough, the year before Gus Malzahn took the head coaching job there, right before he'd make the big jump to be the head ball coach at Auburn with Hugh Freeze at Arkansas State, followed him to Ole Miss, and then took the defensive coordinator position at South Florida in 2015, and then the rest is history. This guy's got a good track record. I'm impressed by it. I love his growth, and I love the way I'm a sucker for coaches that climb their way up the coaching tree. I think that's the only way to really succeed as a coach, and it takes a lot of time. And some guys have impressive resumes, they don't pan out. Some guys have impressive resumes, they go higher and then lower on the totem pole of coaching of coaching staffs, and they don't turn out, and some guys do. So Hugh Freeze loves him. He's coached a lot of talent. He got that land shark defense at Ole Miss. Coach Denzel Kimdiche. I guess his brother's a little more famous, Robert Kimdiche. He was, I think, the #1 recruit in his high school class, also an Ole Miss Rebel. But he knows what he's doing. He's been around the block, and this is a guy that knows how to earn things. So I, for one, am very comfortable with Tom Allen being the head skipper here, and we'll see what happens. But again, it goes back to that offense, and he's not an offensive guy, so we'll see what happens. But Josh, I am very, very okay with this guy from a motivational standpoint and a defensive standpoint of being this head coach, and I think he's going to turn this program around and give it a very, very different identity.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. I mean, in his opening press conference, he was kind of setting up what he was planning to do with this program. He's appealing to recruits right off the bat. I think that's huge, especially with a coaching change as drastic as this, just kind of where it came out of the blue. He's kind of setting the standard and saying this is what's going to be the standard now at Indiana. And him being from Indiana, I think, is huge. His dad was a football coach, a high school football coach. He played under his dad. And he's inviting he's inviting Indiana high school coaches to IU whenever they want to come down. And I think that's great. I think that's exactly what this program needs. They need to establish the state of Indiana much better. And that's exactly what he said in his opening remarks, is that we need to recruit Indiana and keep Indiana players at home. That's absolutely huge for this program. That they haven't really necessarily had that in the past. They've been kind of starting to get a few more of those guys lately. But with Purdue still looking for a coach, with Notre Dame not making a bowl this year, this is a chance for Indiana to potentially break out. This is a very good opportunity for this program to elevate themselves on the national scale. 6 wins is fine. If you can win a bowl game, that'd be fantastic. Tom Allen was already saying that we're going to go prepare for this bowl game. But I'm thrilled for Tom Allen. Could not be more happy for Tom Allen. He deserves this. He's worked his way up, like you said, and he's going to bring this program to, I think, heights that they haven't seen in quite some time.
I'm with you, and I'm keeping tabs on Twitter here, and I think Mike Miller of the Herald Times asked Fred Glass about, we mentioned that that law firm did an inside search, I guess, within the program, and of course we got no specifics. We have no idea what they were searching for. I don't think we definitely did not get an answer on what they found. So that remains a question left to be answered. And the fact that Kevin Wilson turned down, or I'm sorry, his contract had like $11 million left on it, and he agreed to resign for less than $600,000, and just everything that's going on here. What it says to me is that Fred Glass, there's something else going on. And I didn't want to say that earlier just because I didn't really have any evidence for that. But just the way that everyone is handling, this drop that Glass had an outside law firm kind of come into the situation and look at it, whatever that situation is, certainly suggests, you don't just bring a law firm in to search if nothing's going on. You don't bring them in and say, hey guys, can you take a look and make sure that nothing is going on? This is just a completely random search. That really doesn't happen. Again, no official word from Fred Glass. He's not really giving us anything to work with. So frustrating from a media standpoint, perhaps trying to protect IU as a brand, as a name. I don't know. Again, maybe nothing happened. We have no idea right now. But Josh, there's just a lot of stuff going on, and it's confusing, and there's a lot of clouds right now, and not a lot of clear blue sky in front of us.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. And I think if there was something, um, I think Fred Glass would have come out and said it right off the bat. But I feel like, and this is just me, and maybe I think a few other people share the same sentiment. I think there's something beneath the surface that's not coming out. And Fred Glass said he will not comment on the law firm's investigation conversations with current IU football players, if those were even had. He kind of skirted around that question when he was asked that. Fred Glass said he spoke with Kevin Wilson first, then Tom Allen, and he did not know what Tom Allen's answer would be prior to that conversation. Allen said his first response when offered the job was that his heart went out to Wilson and his family. Quote, "I care about people." So there were so many moving pieces and parts to this whole thing. We still don't know really what sparked this firing, but I mean, Tom Allen, he's thrown into an interesting situation because he's only been here for 1 year. I mean, people have to remember that this whole defense has completely changed under his one season at the helm of defensive coordinator. Now he's going to be the head football coach. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. I think that's the big thing, is how you move on from this. Many players liked playing under Coach Wilson. They voiced those sentiments on Twitter today. I don't know. It's hard to kind of sum this all up, but I mean, Tom Allen just said the boys are chomping at the bit, and Indiana will definitely play in a bowl game, as he just said.
And look, if there's something going on, or if there was something going on this season and last season that is of note, then I think that next season, and even in the bowl and in the off season, something's going to come up. This isn't going to go. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would guess this is not going to go completely untalked about for 3, 4, 5 years if something happened with these current players, just given that Kevin Wilson's gone. So again, and we'll see what happens there, but it's just confusing to me. And this situation, you can draw any number of conclusions from it, and they all don't add up. And you know, maybe that's just a weird coincidence. That could certainly be. It could just be multiple things going on. I mean, a football program at a Big Ten school is a very big deal, and you know, there's 50-something guys on your official roster. You know, there's a lot of different views. There's a lot of different personalities, and some people just, you know, may not be. Who knows? You know, it could be any number of things. But the thing I'm taking away from it is I'm going to believe what Fred Glass says, just because I have no reason to believe otherwise. So I do believe that there was a separation of views and you know, a kind of a divergence of philosophical views, like he said, between him and Kevin Wilson. Again, Wilson resigned. That's the main thing to keep in mind here. It's not that Fred Glass canned him. Kevin Wilson did resign for an interestingly low price tag, which is kind of leaving me scratching my head. But he did resign, and that is important to remember when you think about it. If you want to speculate what happened here, if you want to do that, go ahead. I'm not going to, Josh. I don't think we're going to. But if you want to personally, you have to keep in mind that Kevin Wilson was the one that resigned, and you can try and add up those numbers. It'll be tough to come up with a solution, but it's a fishy situation, and anything could come of this. But right now, I'm excited for the success that the team has had, and for what it's worth. Just before we move on and talk a little bit of football before we wrap this show up, for what it's worth, Xander Diamont came out and tweeted, you know, Kevin Wilson and the coaching staff has done a good job of taking care of the guys. Rashard Fant said something similar. A lot of these current players, you know, that they have high praise for Kevin Wilson. And you know, Xander Diamont, I retweeted his statement. It's blowing up. It's got over 250 retweets. He said, Coach Wilson and IU football followed concussion protocol to the letter, end quote there. And again, Coach Wilson was completely supportive during my recovery and didn't want me on the field until I was cleared. And beyond that, felt that I was 150%. So this is all just as much of a surprise to me. Again, that's from Xander Diamont. He tweeted that out just less than an hour after the news broke that Wilson would not return. So, I mean, we could field Twitter questions, and we'll start talking about a little bit of football. But for what it's worth, the current players, after the news broke that Wilson would not return, were backing him. That means something. That does not mean absolutely nothing. And again, conflicting reports between former and current players, whatever. We'll see how this plays out. But the fact that current guys on the team have something positive to say, that means something. So I feel that Fred Glass made the right decision, and everything's going to be okay. But Josh, before we wrap this up, we got to talk a little bit of football and what this means for the program. We've gotten a couple of Twitter questions, some of which we've answered. But one question I just got from @DenverHelton, he says, where do you see Tom Allen taking this team in the future? And, I name dropped a couple of SEC coaches earlier. I don't think he's going to have the same success that Gus Malzahn did at Auburn his first year at the helm, winning the SEC, beating Alabama, and taking them 10 seconds away from the national championship. I don't think that's going to happen for a multitude of reasons. But when you have a guy, again, and I'm a sucker for a good coaching tree, and when you climb the ladder and you do it well, but when you have a guy that's got the resume that Tom Allen does, everywhere he goes, his team is excited to play football. And that's better than a lot of coaches can say right now. I mean, you look at a lot of Ed Orgeron. He gets his guys ready to play football. And he hasn't had a good head coaching gig since Ole Miss, and he wasn't very good there. But when he stepped in as interim coach at USC, he did great. And at LSU, he's been doing fine. He gets his guys ready to play. There are coaches out there with not very talented teams. PJ Fleck, his guys are excited to play football more than any team in the country week in and week out. They're undefeated, and they've got great talent that's completely being maximized. So to answer your question, what I see from Tom Allen in the future is he's going to field a football team where week in and week out, they're excited to play. And you can recruit better than anyone in the conference. You could recruit in the bottom third of the conference. If you have a bunch of guys that fit your system, I'm not talking about 5-star athletes, but if you have guys that fit your system, you trust, they trust each other, and you can get them ready to play every single week, that's a successful coach in my book. You will never fail as a coach if you have guys like that. You're going to get an upset every now and then. You're going to beat the teams that you catch off guard. So I think right now, and sitting here right now thinking about it, Tom Allen's the right guy. And I got a couple texts saying I don't agree with this. I hate teams that let their coach walk and then they hire a coordinator. It never ends well. I got someone cited Illinois, and that they're a mess over there. But I'm hoping for the best from Tom Allen, and I certainly think that he could succeed. So, Josh, I'll spin this right back to you. I've been going for a little too long. Where do you see Tom Allen taking this team in the near and possibly distant future?
I think in the near future, it's going to this is interesting because Kevin Wilson, he left some pretty good pieces in place, and Tom Allen he's been here for this season, and they're a bowl team for the past 2 years, so the pieces are there to get to 6 wins. Now moving forward, you're going to need if you want to get to championships potentially, or get to bigger bowl games, get to New Year's Six bowl games, get into the top 25 rankings. It's going to take a little bit to build. And I think what Tom Allen was talking about in getting those in-state recruits, that's the first step. I could see this program getting to 7 wins next year, potentially 8 wins. I feel like they had a chance to get to 8 wins this year. They only got to 6, obviously, but this is all still right in front of Tom Allen. 8 wins is not out of the question, I don't think, by any means. I really liked one thing he said towards the end of the press conference. He said his view of a successful program first graduates players, second develops them as young men, and third competes for championships. So right off the bat, he's establishing that this Indiana program, he wants them to compete for championships. He wants them to be competitive in a very tough Big Ten East. I mean, the 2 teams that were basically the favorites in the conference this year, both out of the Big Ten East, and they're not even in the Big Ten championship. Penn State is. So that's 3 teams that you're going to have to jump up over, and that's going to take a while because you're still about 5-6 wins per season behind them, and it's going to take a while. I think it's going to be a steady progression, but you need to get good athletes in here. That's first. You need to get consistent quarterbacks. You need to get consistent linemen. I think the defense is basically set. I like where this defense is at right now. They have really good playmakers. If Tigray Scales comes back next year, he's going to be a huge player on this Indiana defense. It starts with the offense, and that's what Tom Allen talked about first in his press conference. Was he he mentioned the offense, the defense, and the special teams, but he started off with the offense, and he said you need to be able to run the ball and you need to be able to score in the red zone. Those are two things Kevin Wilson could not really do here this year at IU. But then he also mentioned that they were probably one of the best offensive teams in the Big Ten since 2012. So there's a lot of good pieces in place right now. It's just how you develop them and how you move forward. That's going to be interesting to watch. But I think 7-8 wins in the near future is not out of the question by any means.
I agree with you, and I think that should be the goal right now for this football team is if you want to put a number on it, and I know a lot of coaches don't, but if you want to put a number on a goal, I think 8 right now is what this team should do. If they can get 8 wins, that would obviously mean 4 losses, which with the current state of the Big Ten, 4 teams in the top 7, if you can get 4 losses on the season, just a half decade removed from a 1-11 season in the Big Ten, that's successful in my book. But yeah, I mean, look, Tom Allen is going to get the guys excited to play football, and recruiting is one thing because I don't know how much recruiting he's done, and we'll see how he does. And he's got talent on this team, especially with that defense. I mean, that linebacking core is truly as good as it gets in the Big Ten. You may not believe me, and you may think I'm crazy, but find a number that proves me wrong. Between Marcus Oliver and Tigre Scales, find me a better linebacking duo in the Big Ten, statistics-wise. And we'll see what happens, with that recruiting again. But I think Tom Allen is a good fit, and you could bash them for for not kind of joining in on the coaching search because it's going to be a carousel in the offseason. But LSU did the same thing. They hired Ed O. That's obviously a bigger name of a program than Indiana at the moment. But this is every situation is unique, and I personally think Indiana made the right choice here in terms of Tom Allen after moving on from Kevin Wilson. And again, we'll continue to update you throughout the day if anything new comes up. I doubt it will, but absolutely we'll be in touch with everyone as things go forward if new things arise. But I mean that's about all we have for right now in terms of news. Fred Glass, that press conference now over, I believe, didn't really give us much in terms of why exactly Wilson left. And Josh has one more thing before we wrap up here. So Josh, take it away.
Yeah, no, I just want to piggyback on your thought about just choosing a coach right off the bat. There were a lot of people on Twitter I saw that they didn't really like Indiana going right after Tom Allen and putting him into the permanent coaching job. People on Twitter wanted people to have them go through a coaching search, and if Tom Allen was then the best guy, get him then. But I kind of disagree with that, and I say if you have the guy you want and you think you want, just get him. I mean, he's a name within the program. You don't have to have drastic changes. Right now, the entire coaching staff is going to stay for the bowl game, and he's going to reevaluate that after. I really like Fred Glass. If he did one good thing tonight, it was he kept Tom Allen in Indiana, and he didn't go out and get a PJ Fleck or a different coordinator somewhere else. It was a common name that many people know already, that's been within the program, that knows this program a little bit better than a new guy coming in. So I'm glad that's how they went about this and they didn't do another coaching search.
Yeah, and it puts a lot of stress on the AD and the athletic department and the football team, especially with that bowl game lingering. And for a program like Indiana right now, that bowl game means a lot. And for guys like Xander Diamont that are more or less a legend around Bloomington, the bowl game means a lot for them. And these seniors to get the Oaken Bucket 4 straight years, to have the Oaken Bucket and the Spittoon in the same season and go to a bowl game 2 years in a row. I mean, these are uncharted waters for Indiana football, and it's an exciting time. But Josh, unless you have anything else to add, anything you've seen on Twitter, I think Twitter's just kind of stalled. But I mean, the thing to take away is that Indiana's in good hands with Tom Allen. Details might emerge, they might not, of some of these allegations that some players are loosely throwing out there. We have no idea right now. It's just words being said, which is again how things start up. But we don't have any substance to that. Fred Glass didn't provide anything, so we will see what happens there. Obviously, if anything big happens, you guys will know about it. But stay tuned to us. We're going to do our best to keep tabs on this, but this could be a long process. And it could be much ado about nothing. It could simply be Fred Glass wants this team to win now, and he's feeling the pressure. And with the money piling in to the university and the athletic department, he's got to get them winning. And you know, the pressure is real. It's a dog-eat-dog world in the Big Ten, and you know, maybe he just did not see Kevin Wilson taking them to that 9-win goal that they may or may not have. But that's all I have, Josh. Unless you've got something, that'll do it for this episode of the Hoosier Life. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thanks for sticking with us. To our live audience, it was a tough show. It was tough to respond to this literally before the press conference ended. But thanks for sticking with us, Josh. We had some good conversations here, and we'll talk to you guys soon. We'll be back next week, and then we'll update you with our schedule as the winter time approaches. Apologies that we couldn't reflect on that big North Carolina win, but the guys put together 60 minutes last night, Wednesday night rather, of great content. So absolutely give that a listen. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.